What's up, Wes?
Yeah, what's up, buddy? Episode number 82. I'm just gonna roll with the numbers, Cam. Episode number 82, Wes Smith Variety ShYo, and we are back, baby. I think it's last episode was just before COVID, which ended
Oh, no
everything.
way.
Yeah, dude. And I just want to reboot. New technology, new things going on. I want to reboot. By the way, do you remember what episode you were?
Man,
Chance?
I want to say it was pretty. Yeah, like probably like. What you said it was 40?
43. Your episode.
Okay,
40.
I was thinking it was like 30 something, but okay, yeah, that's sounds like kind of in the chunk of it, in the meat of it.
You're in the middle of the series. Yeah. 80. I made it to 81. The last one I did. Yeah, the last one I did was with Dennis Hollenbeck when I was doing the Baja race car stuff.
Oh, nice.
But you were 43. I'm looking, and it looks like it was sometime maybe mid 2018.
Mid 18, yeah, it sounds about right because it was probably a couple years before.
Yep.
Before the shutdown, and I was still working at the sock company and doing that
the
whole thing. So yeah.
Well, right. Well,
what a time! What a time that was.
I didn't run the transcript from episode 43 through ChatGPT, but what I did do, as you know, is since we wanted to talk about this independent in general electronic music artist and label journey, I asked ChatGPT about that, as you know. So we're gonna kind of bounce off some of those ideas while we go. But one thing that's changed since 2018, Cam, is we've got a release out together. Let's talk about it.
We sure do. Yeah, honestly, a pretty just interesting and funny thing. I mean, to kind of give some background, I wasn't very confident in like my production as I was first starting out, kind of figuring out what was going on and what did I want to sound like, what was attractive to me, and I was kind of like swinging and missing a little bit. And one of my friends makes like rap music, and it was just really cool, and it was like really inspiring. So I made this like house remix with Taji D's vocals. And then once I released that, I showed it to Colin, who was like, wow, this is a pretty cool remix, man. And, it wasn't like the craziest thing I ever made, but like for me, it was the best thing I had ever made, right? So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then, and I'm pretty sure Colin showed the song to you. And then I think you might have liked the vocals of it. And, then Colin was like, yo, dude, can we get, all like the stems for this? So I asked my friend, yo, can we work on this project? And, Taj was super cool and didn't really care. So, fast forward until, I don't know, we probably started tinkering around probably in like 2021, 22, I would say, is when that was all formulating. And now we just released a 3-pack EP called the Same Old Joe Trilogy Remix Pack, featuring Wes Smith, Cole Vassallo, me, Burn Cam. We got house, tech house, drum and bass, and it's all crazy variations of a rap song called Same Old Joe by Taji D. And, it's just one of those things where 3 friends just kind of messed around and, I didn't think it was going to become anything. And now it's out on United Bass Records. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think it's pretty exciting. What are your thoughts on it, Wes?
Heck, dude, it is exciting. Well, my number one thought is that I would play some clips, but as we've discovered, I was prepared to play lined in audio from the studio setup, and it didn't sound great, right? So we're not. I think maybe we just won't do it. What do you think? Was the quality? You want me to rock yours, or was the quality?
It was like kind of weird. You couldn't really hear. It was like going in and out. So what we'll do is we'll post some links where you're seeing this right now. It's on SoundCloud. It's on Spotify. It's on Beatport if you want to support, a small label and 4 or 5 people who came together to make a little fun project. So, but yeah, it was a fun thing. I'm glad that we, got it out. I'm glad that, my bass recordings was like, oh yeah, let's put this out. So that was cool validation,
Yeah, I'll make sure I drop all the links and stuff in the description and whatnot, and then any clips we push out. So we'll make sure you got the info. As far as the release goes, yeah, your accounting of it is pretty much what I remember. I hearing it. I think I was with Colin in his truck, and I heard it and I thought maybe it was Colin, or I don't know. We were going somewhere, and
Yeah.
I think that's how it went down. And then I liked the vocal, and I was like, oh, dude, I want to remix that. And then it didn't really come around, like you said. And then I guess you guys talked a little bit, and then maybe you weren't. I think you, like you just said, I think maybe you weren't psyched about your house mix as much as maybe you wanted to do drum and bass. Maybe you were a little conflicted, which genre you really wanted to kind of focus on for that. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that's an interesting thing we could talk about today as well, because I know a
Yeah.
lot of people question, like, do I focus on one genre? Do I do multiple? Like, what's the deal? So we'll circle back to that. I think that was part of the equation, and then like
Mhm.
it made sense because we knew Colin Colvasalo was gonna do a tech house one, right? Like that was his passion, and
Mhm.
um, makes sense to have two house things anyway. And then you come back with this drum and bass thing, and Colin was played me that, and maybe you were there too, and I was like, oh. So and I don't know if but I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but I don't know if I wouldn't say my first electronic music, but like I was for sure a drum and bass head for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Some of the things we were putting out too was there was like drum and bass sprinkled through quite a few of your like albums. I was catching on just from like I could just heard it from what you were putting out and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a long history with different music and different genres. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
We won't
Yeah.
maybe time we'll get streaking into genres and things more on the production side. But yeah, let's jump into but yeah, those drum and bass roots, I thought you might just appreciate that because
That's great. Love that.
one time my anecdotal thing, and I tell anyone who ever asks me about drum and bass, this is like, I had these friends at the time that I was into it, and they were promoting like one of the biggest clubs in Washington D.C. It was called Buzz DC. It was at this space called Nation, and and they had just the biggest parties basically that were like club but warehouse feel, and so they had all the touring acts come through, and I worked at their record store. And I think we might have talked about this way back in 2018. Anyway, I worked at their record store called Music Now, and so sometimes DJs would have a problem, delay, visas, whatever, and then I might get a call, or someone else at the store might get a call to come play, right? So like one night they called me real quick, and this guy leaving, he was like the booker and part owner, and he was like, "Hey, dude, can you?" He's like, "Can you come, down to the club and play?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I was like, "What am I playing?" And he's like, "Drum and bass." What? And I worked at the store, so like me and the other guys, it didn't matter what music we were into personally. Like we had to be into all of it, right, to work the store.
Yeah.
So and so I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'll be down." Doesn't tell me anything. So I cruise down. I go. And I'm like, "What time's my slot?" Because usually it's like opening, and he's like, "Oh, like new midnight, let's say something like that." It was
Like the top half of the night. Yeah.
dude. It was the V Recordings tour with
Oh,
Jumpin' Frog,
dang.
those guys, and
That's
and
awesome.
didn't show up. I think Brian G. And
Yeah.
so he's like, "Yeah, you're playing Brian G's spot. It's only 45 minutes." I'm like, "I got this,
No big deal.
right, dude?" And I'm like, so nervous,
Delivered by G.
dude, so nervous.
That's funny.
And so like I'm playing, things are going good. I got like my 10 people that are local that are vibing, and of course the club's vibing. And they had two big different rooms. And someone comes up to me and he's like, "Yo, Diesel Boy, what's up?" And I was like, biggest
That's
compliment
funny.
I've ever had as a DJ ever in my entire life. Dude,
Like, all right, that's cool. All right, I passed this Diesel Boy. Lit.
yeah. All right, dude. So anyway, that's my anecdotal from the Wayback Machine. All right, dude. So let's see some things. Let's go straight in on this independent journey. And since we talked about
Yeah.
genre, jump into that. Like give your take on you know thinking about genres, whether you're making them, and then maybe into the label perspective. Like, do you do one or do you do multiple?
Yeah, it's funny because I have like a different like thought about it depending on like which side I'm at. So from like an artist perspective, you know, I feel like it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to do it for fun, you know, you can kind of like make whatever you want. But if you're trying to build like a fan base, it can be a little challenging to have like a fan base when your music is like very different. So like if you're gonna do music that's multi-genre, you know, just make it cohesive. Like have a sound that sounds good. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of sound, but you know, some people can make drastically different music and they just it if you're not trying to pull people together collectively, like that can be a challenge, right? So just try to have a vision on how you're going to keep everything tight, make it sound like if you hear a house version of your song or a D&B version, you can be like, oh, is that Burn Cam or is that Wes Smith? Because you just hear that flavor, right? You know, have that flavor kind of pull through. Now, like when we're looking at it from like a label perspective, what I find challenging is like we are trying to do that multi-genre label thing, and what we're finding is we are finding that we're kind of going more in a lane because we're finding music that's resonating better in one genre. When we have this open to everything, we're getting like I said, so much different stuff that like it would be so weird. Like you hear this one song and you release this other song and you're like, who's that? You wouldn't even know that's United by Bass recordings because like one's this crazy dubstep and then one's this like super chill house song and there's like no cohesion. So I think like the whole idea is if you're gonna attempt that, there just needs to be like a cohesive sound. And I think, you know, what I was saying before, how Juice recordings and the stuff that you put out, it has like a cohesive sound. So like when you hear some of these songs, like you hear a certain flavor and it is well gelled together. It's not like you're hearing like two totally 180s and they don't really go together and it confuses the mind. You know, so I'm all about artistic expression. I don't want to hold limitations, but I think there should be a focus. I think there should be like a gel that holds like your identity together.
Yeah, and so both as an artist and as a label, it sounds like maybe you think it's kind of similar. I mean, I think it's kind of similar for both for a lot of the reasons you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess before I thought they'd be different. Then as I was talking them through, you know, they are kind of similar. I just think what I find is uh, I on the label side, I tend to put up more walls because I'm trying to look for something. So, you know, I think that could be a little limiting, but at the same time, like we were too open previously, and then we had no idea what we were doing. So, like, I feel like we kind of had to put in a little bit of lanes that way we can kind of filter. Okay, what yeses or nos? Because you can't have all yeses or all nos. So there needs to be at least some kind of like filter, at least to you know point yourself at least
Yeah.
in a direction of some sort. So
Yeah. Well, speaking about filtering, along those lines, so how many releases you guys have? Is it 12 out? Does I read that right?
12, yeah, 12 releases. Yeah.
Okay. So,
We
and
have
I
our
know
13, we have 13 pending. So we'll have the 13th in November.
so I was just about to ask was, oh,
Yeah,
number 13. I was
number
like,
13.
okay. I was going to
We
ask
were number
about,
12.
yeah, I was going to ask what you're finding these days. So I've been on two of those EPs as remixes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, like, what are you seeing in terms of, um, does United by Base, are y'all doing any outreach? Are people just coming to, I know you have a pretty good socials footprint as well as local in real person footprint through events and things. So
Yeah.
how is most of that coming to you that's making its way onto an official release?
Yeah. So we're very lucky to be SD Union first, right? And to have like the greatest US DMV connections of all time, right? We are like without trying to brag, we are like probably one of the most connected groups like of drum and bass like in
It's,
America. You know,
it's,
where there are other groups that are also very connected, but like if there's a top five, like we're in the top five, like for sure. You know, like we know a lot of people, we love them, they love us, and like they want to support. And honestly, do we ask them if they want to be a part of the project? And some people will say no, or some people will have expectations, right? Because they are at a certain stage of their career and maybe it's not now, but it's later. But then we have other people like Ben Soundscape who like loves to just throw us songs just because he wants to like work with us. And you know, sometimes we'll bring an artist out on a show and conversations might be had then, and there'll just be some excitement, and somebody will be like, hey, I want to remix a song, and we'll talk about it then. So luckily we have such a great connection with like our people, you know, and what we do, that has fruited quite a bit of like some of the main talent that we like to bring. And then as far as like getting some of the more local people, it's been a hybrid of reaching out, and we also do have submissions. You can head to our website, unitedbybase.com, and there's a submission in there. And I believe you could also do it maybe through our SoundCloud, just on messages. But essentially, people do send us demos that way as well. And sometimes we'll go into like Facebook groups too and just say, hey, we have a song like from an artist and we're looking for remixers, and we'll just do like a really cold reach and see what hits. And I think on our first release, we had a couple people who were part of those groups, and more recently, it's been some local people that have reached out or have wanted to be a part of the project. So kind of just a mixture of everything, you know, so it kind of brings a nice blend of different talents and different skills. And some people are recognized, and some people are people we don't know yet, and we want to bring some of those people to the table too, you know.
How are you guys on volume? Like with you have release number 13, like you said, coming out, it sounds like before the end of the year. How are you on volume of, say, quantity of tracks you've got that you like and or are signed, and you're, you know, looking at 25, for example, releases?
Yeah, so currently we filled up this year, and then we've been a little more quiet as far as building out 2025. Like at this point last year, we already had like 3-ish releases kind of lined up in the books. We have had some pretty big events recently, and with one of our partners undergoing a massive change in his career as well, we've kind of dialed back just a little bit. So currently we're a little more open. So we are going to start prospecting a little bit more soon. We do want to get to the point where we're doing at least one a month. So right now we're doing like, we started off doing quarterly releases, then we did like quarterly with some in between. So this year we did the most volume. I can't remember how many, but this is the most amount we did this year, and we just want to keep kind of building on that. So it is a light right now, but ideally, probably before the year's end, we'll probably already have at least one knocked out for January, February, sometime in that range. At least have one or two in the books. So that's the goal.
I'm gonna clip that segment and put it in some producer groups I'm in, and you'll get some.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the cool thing is, like, you know, we're super open, and you know, the opportunity for some of these fresh artists is if they have something that's really cool, and like, you know, they want to get their name out there, there's a possibility that a big name might be the remixer of that song. You know, we don't always have the big names. Like, for example, Clippy, our up and coming pretty big D&B artist, was the remixer of a house artist that's local here. So like
Right.
it was a local new upcoming house guy, and then an upcoming hot D&B guy was the second. So like there's always that chance that your song can be remixed by, you know, a big artist as well too, which is pretty cool.
I think that's a you know, when you were talking about the multi-genre thing from a label perspective, uh, one thing that's certainly easier than from an artist perspective is having, you know, several different genres, at least from a production standpoint, right? But then you do have all the marketing related things and release related things that you talked about. But I didn't think about that until you just mentioned it. I didn't think profoundly about it. Like, so that More Than Enough release that you guys did that I was on, um, that reminded me that Nomans was a drum and bass act. Rosebud was the vocalist on that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was a Four on the Floor remix that I did for that. So I think
Hmm.
a lot of sense, and that's really cool. I think that's a really cool way to be a multi-genre label because, um, yeah, I mean the release is going to lead with an artist that's from some genre, right? And then you're not necessarily having originals from 3 or 4 genres. Maybe it's the original in a specific genre, and then you know, that's maybe 2 or 3 of the ones that United by Bass reps or likes to lead with, and then you've got these
Hmm.
remixes from, you know, whoever it is, right? That
Right.
makes That's cool. I look forward to hearing more of those. That's an interesting take on it. By the way,
Yeah.
I was looking on Beatport while you were talking, and that's how I remembered the More Than Enough mix from a little bit back because it's on there in the United by Bass thing on Beatport. Number 9,
Mhm.
baby.
Yeah. That was a good one. But yeah, like just to add real quick, it's definitely a unique approach we are taking. It has led to some confusion on like it's easy to push one thing, right? It's harder to push two different things that are almost the same thing. So just like, spreading resources out to different groups, but the cool thing is we're finding like people are listening to music they probably want to have, and it's just cool to like, if you're not a D&B guy, like we probably have this cool song that you still might like in your version. You know what I mean? So like, because sometimes people like want it, like, oh, I wish that was in house. So we're kind of like bringing that. So it's kind of like a different weird take on it. But yeah, it's been interesting to see the response. So
yeah, and if you have a good vocal, you just never know what's going to happen. I mean,
yeah.
like Haji D one, the vocal is what caught my, like at the time I wasn't probably even really paying a lot of attention to I wouldn't say I was educated in the current four on the floor music. So when I was listening to yours, like I mean, I didn't even have any space to comment on the actual kind of music, you know what I'm saying, at that time.
Right.
But the vocal popped right out to me, and that's for me, that's why I honed in on, like you're saying. Um, and then if you look at things unrelated to either of us, a good example of a vocal that like that Drugs from Amsterdam track that Mal P did, like that thing was remixed in so many ways, bootleg and real.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually heard the song the first time I heard it was at a SD Union party. It was a remix somebody played, and I don't know if it was a boot or what it was, but like I thought the Drugs from Amsterdam track was by them.
That's funny. That's
And it
great.
was so lit. It was so lit, dude. I have a
That's
video.
funny.
I thought like, then I go looking for it and I can't find it. Shazam's not working, and then I stumble upon in a like I'm a Will Clark podcast one day with Mal P, and they start talking about the track, and I'm like, oh no way, this dude's like the Drugs from Amsterdam, dude.
That's hilarious.
Right?
Oh, that's
Um,
good.
but I mean, it's just a good example of giving that as like a good example of vocal has strength to go in a lot of different ways, maybe than what the original artist perceived, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
and in doing that, it can reach people like me in that scenario who may be really into music, but it's a massive world and there's thousands and thousands of songs coming out. That was just an example. Like it's easy for someone to not know who Mal P is, at
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep. Yep.
time, right? So,
Yeah.
and then there you go. They end up finding you and getting turned on to a bunch of other stuff. So that's really cool. Yeah, man. So the other thing I wanted to mention real quick, just my personal story with United by Bass, and it ties into some things I've been having, some online chats with people about recently is just I know a lot of artists from the artist side, especially brand new ones that have zero network and maybe they aren't in a place where they can really go out or their scene is growing or whatever. I get like frustration from some of them, like like real frustration because they just can't get anyone to listen to anything, this, that, and the other. And so something I was suggesting to a number of people is that while there's the huge global side of things, and then there's the DIY, just do it yourself, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There's a big, huge spectrum in the middle. It's not just those two, and um, and then there's all kinds of scams and stuff out there too. But if you can kind of steer clear of those after a few bumps and bruises, you know, groups like United by Bass, to your point about a unique scenario, is that y'all have put in work, man, for years. And that's what that community is from in the Southern California and beyond area. I assume most of the parties have been in Southern California. Is that right?
Yeah. Mostly San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for now, that's just a suggestion, and I'll lock that one away and use it as a suggestion to people. But it kind of goes into what I've been telling people is like everyone, people will throw around really easily this word like you got to build a community. Well, that's true, but that's tough if you're, I don't know, 20 years old or whatever, 22 years old, and really just trying to play with Ableton, for the first year and get your feet on the ground, right? And so I think that, you know, mainstay promoters that have a community that are cool, that aren't rushing into everything, that have a long history and are proud of that, like United by Bass and SD Union. I think those are great people to try to talk to. And even for myself, I'm not from San Diego. Now I've been there quite a long time, but I at some point, I don't remember how I came into knowing United by Bass, but it wasn't it wasn't because I got booked or anything like that. I think it was local events, and like I said,
Mhm.
I don't play drum and bass anymore, but I'm ahead and probably went to some SD Union shows. I'm sure I met Tyler. We can't go without
Yeah,
NC.
yeah, honestly.
I'm sure that was part of it. Maybe it was a West Coast weekend or collab, whatever. And then, then I met Colin, who's Cole Vassallo, the other on the release, the trilogy release. And as you know, I guess the way I really kind of got into the United by Bass, community, fam, if you will, was when I had Colin work for me and the label for a couple
Mm,
years
right, right, right.
when we were just crushing it, and there was like full solid focus on that genre, and being the best we could, and we did a great job, and then that kind of got me into there. But whichever angle you look at it from, I just think for aspiring and budding artists, like I can feel the frustration, and you probably can too if you've tried submitting through Label Radar or Track Stack. Are you familiar with any of those tools, or do you use any of them at United by Bass?
I didn't. No, we're not on those. But me personally, I have used those. But as a label, we're not on those ones right now.
And if you use them for submitting like to labels?
Yeah, like I haven't tried the other one, but Label Radar, like I've tried one a few times. I actually I've gotten like a few bites on that actually. I didn't sign anything because I didn't like the labels, but like I did get people who were interested in signing with me, just like random people from all over the world. So yeah.
Sure, but you did any deals through them, right?
No, I didn't follow through any deals. A couple of labels that offered me, it was like their deals weren't great. They were like really not good. And then also like
They wanted you
not
to
that I was
pay.
gonna make any
They
money
wanted
anyways, but I didn't want to make like nothing and give them music because I want some artist integrity. And then a couple of them were just like they were just like I couldn't tell if they were scammy or not. I just had a weird gut feeling. I was like, so like they were. I think there was just maybe a possible language barrier, and it wasn't communicating that well. But it just seemed like it wasn't. I don't know. It was like I didn't want to release my art to somebody who I wasn't feeling was like it felt like almost like a scammy radio from a different country. And I was like, I don't
yeah,
know if that's even real or not. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna pass.
yeah. I think
Could be
I
real, but
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this makes you feel any better, but I've used Label Radar a bunch. I got through the kick and bass producer community that I'm in. I got turned on to Track Stack. I dabbled with it a little bit. That you can also use for reaching, DJs that are trying to manage their promo box better, stuff like that. Um, and there's others, in flight and other services that huddle around the circumference of this idea, right? But the ones I've used are like you said, as well. And but the same thing for me, dude. I got the same kind of results. Like if I throw something out on Label Radar, not like the only way I do them now is just to a specific label that has interacted with me,
right.
and had some real feedback. Um, at first, I just didn't understand them very well, or maybe how big the ocean of what's on there is, and I would just like put it out to everyone, and I would be overwhelmed with all these answers, and I was like, but at the end of the day, like I went through, maybe the first say five out of I don't know 20 or something like that on like some of my four on the floor stuff now, and then I would read all the agreements or have them send them to me. And I haven't signed a ton of agreements, around music, maybe 10, 15 different ones over my career, but enough to like look at them and be like, well, wait a minute, why am I why am I being asked to pay for all the promo, I'm going to be put on a
It's like
compilation. I don't have any like, and I really try to step back and think about that. Like, okay, let me not. This person doesn't know me, and it shouldn't matter. And let me not let that get in the way of anything. Like historically, we're starting at zero here. Does this make sense if I'm starting at zero? And honestly, I couldn't even make sense of it if I was starting at zero.
yeah. I
So
mean, that's kind of how I felt too. Like it was hard. You explained it better than me. I was like, you read it and you're just like, no, like this seems like a negative deal. Like I'm not for like I'm not thinking that my music is gonna make me $1 million, but like also like I'm not gonna be there's a line at least where you're like I don't know, is this even support at this point? Like what am I gonna get out of this? So yeah.
100th one. Um, like I enjoy the two that I with United by Bass, because I really struggle with letting them go. And I know once I let something go, remix or original, like I have to forget about it, um, promote the way they want me to promote it, etc. Try to get on board with all that, and hopefully that's cool. And of course, it has been with you guys. But it's no longer mine, right, so to speak, right? And so I struggle with that every time,
Mhm.
uh, and so that's part of it, for me. And that decision, aside from the ownership of stuff and debating that, it's just like I feel good. I feel good if someone I know, like United by Bass, has it, and I think that's a strong thing
True.
about
Yeah, true, true.
that people should think about. I think it's important, because you feel like they're going to care about it a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%, dude. A good point is I was actually supposed to drop two singles on this Spanish label, like a dubstep label that reached out to me through SoundCloud Exchange Pro or
Yeah,
something like that. So you just like you share everyone's, and they were like, "Yo, your music's actually pretty cool. Like we want to feature more drum and bass. We've only done a couple singles. We're dubstep focused, like super high energy." And I had a couple crazy songs that they heard, and we were chatting pretty good at first, and it seemed pretty good. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down to release a couple of songs. And they said like, literally just send us 2 songs when you got them wrapped up, and we'll launch it in like September. So I got these 2 songs wrapped up, and then I sent it over to them, and like didn't hear from them. I was like, okay, whatever. It's like whatever. But they didn't even like see the message. I'm like, these people like. So I tried these other 2 channels. Like they had a distro kit or Discord channel and Instagram and SoundCloud. So those are 3 they told me to use. So I hit them up on all of them, and they ghosted me for like weeks, bro, like weeks. And I was like, okay, I just forgot about them. And then they
yeah,
came back one time randomly. We want to release, we want to do these things, blah blah blah. And like, I was like, okay, well, look at the songs I sent you. Are you cool? They're like, yeah, just get them mastered. I'm like, okay, cool. So I get them mastered, and then I send them the songs, and then like nothing. And then now it's October, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not at this point. I'm not even comfortable. Like, I just feel like you don't even care at this point. Even if you wanted to release it, like, I don't even care anymore. And I actually am just going to self-release it myself. And so it's to the point of like it doesn't have to be like a big label, but like show that you care like 5%. Like give anything that way I feel like the art that I'm going to give you will have like any recognition other than like they're just putting it on the books, because I can just put it on the books at that point. You know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah. Pump the brakes a little bit, right? Like, um, information's easily available nowadays. People talk to people. They're in different groups of all kinds. This kind of stuff travels way faster than it used to, and I hope that that starts to happen where people just, pump the brakes a little bit, both the artists, the labels, whatever, and try to think about how to just keep a good fresh scene going, and having a bit more relationships to thing. I think that's what a lot of it boils down to is that kind of stuff. Let me so real quick, let's roll the Chat GPT dice here and see
Let's
what we
go.
left in our list. We definitely had some good stuff on the independent journey from both of us chatting around, and then genre talk and whatnot, and then oh yeah, like you hit a little bit on brand, but maybe just more specific thoughts on like creating a unique brand. That was one of the things we were going to talk about. So like, yeah,
Yeah, I'll talk about that because we have an interesting story and more of like a lesson to learn. And I think to give you the ending first, like original and simple is better than complicated and confusing, right? So like we at first had this cool idea that was really insane of like having crazy artwork for every single release, and each genre that we released would have different artwork that over time would like communicate like this like storyboard of like imagery, because we wanted to bring like this really fun interactive like other piece of art to the art project to make it more than just music. And it was a really cool idea, and we're actually making a lot of progress. We like nailed down all these things, but like dude, we had spent so much time like spinning our wheels, like trying to get these things down. and just like not like we argued about it, but like we really were just trying to be like, that's not the right thing. So let's keep working on it, you know? And so we kept working on it. We worked on physical art forever where you were never happy with it. And then what it ended up boiling down to is we ended up just scrapping the idea, and we had wasted like so much time. And like, we thought that was gonna be like the big focus of the thing. And then it wasn't. So there was like a growing pain in our first year of like, we thought we knew the direction where we were going to go, and we thought we had this cool like vision for it, and then we realized that like it in reality that just wasn't feasible, and it was too complicated, and it was getting really confusing, and like we realized that nobody on the outside was going to even understand that. We knew what was going on, so we had like hours and hours and hours of talks about this, but like who would even remember that in the real world? So after kind of going through all those pains, we just said, okay, let's just simplify. Let's take the core of what that was, and that's what our at first was like that panda. So that was like our first revision. Like, let's cut all that. Let's just have one unique thing. And then we realized that we weren't even carrying around like the animal theme anymore. We were kind of just trying to be a little bit more like just modern and edgy. So we kind of scrapped that and just went more simplified with the bee and like a little logo with like the audio jack. And it felt a little bit better representative of what we were. And instead of trying to force this like journey of vision of art, it was a cool idea. But like when it came down to it, it was like, that's like too much. Like we need to simplify, keep a focus, and then just move forward with that. It was too many things to worry about all the time. So it was cool. We had some cool arts that came out about that and some funny ideas. But what we're doing now is so much faster, and we're just able to pump out music instead and have cool art with it. But like the art's not like holding us back anymore, and it shouldn't have in the first place. So just a funny lesson learned of like, sometimes being simple and concise and original is good, and just focus on that piece and don't make it too complicated.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually looking at them now that you mentioned it, and I did realize that there was a different B on the releases now. So I guess proudly I've been on the old art project and then
You were.
validation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's so funny because I actually didn't realize it was a B right off until the other day. But then I keep recognizing the mark way more than I recognize the panda as being unique, and so it's working, man.
Thank you. Yeah. With that change mindset, whenever you see like a new logo, you're always like, that's weird and I don't like it. But like, we knew it was like the right thing to do. And now that it's on our stuff now, and with the style of art we're trying to do now, and just the way we present it, it is more clean, and it is a little bit more recognizable, I think. And it's not as busy. I was too busy before, and it was just, again, it was cool, but just it was a little too much.
Yeah,
In a good way, though. It was all for fun. It was all good, but yeah.
cool.
You live and you learn.
Learning and evolving, right? Yeah.
Always evolving. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, let's see. We talked a lot about crate digging, from a label perspective, that kind of stuff. We won't get into like the DJ journey on that. Try to keep we'll hover around label stuff and artists and labels. But let's see. Like we also hit really the structure of labels. But I think the thing maybe we haven't hit yet, unless you have another quick idea, is maybe explaining the workflow of going from, you talked about decision making on a release. So let's say you've selected the songs, and let's go from there. Describe the flow of how, a song, it's signed, there's an agreement, so you've got a deal. Now what happens, and where does it go on its journey to getting out to Beatport? Let's just focus on
Yeah.
the journey to there.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of people don't know what's going on, right? And it actually has been interesting, and for the most part, it's pretty easy. But what I have found is like you do need a system, and you do need to kind of know what you're doing a little bit, So, assuming that we have agreements, that's all signed, everything's gravy, and we personally like to master our music. Your master that came back was good, but most people can't master their music that well. And we like to have cohesion. So we actually prefer pre-masters. References are good too. And then we have them mastered from the lines and mastering. Shout out Greg Fire. because we want to have a cohesive, like, at least mastering quality. Because there are some labels that you hear that are younger where it's like kind of all over the place, and you're
Yep.
gonna get that regardless of production. But like we're trying to keep it as tight as possible. So for us, keeping that that baseline sound, I guess, is what we do. So we
Yep.
master your music, and then from there we have a meeting about what our artwork's going to be. We usually, like, nowadays we have like a theme kind of for the year, and then we will have Tyler draft up some artworks and we'll kind of revise the artwork and like what's the artwork going to be. We need all the physical things before we go release it, so artwork is one of them, agreements, mastered songs, and then we have a meeting about, if we haven't already picked dates, we kind of see, are we still on timeline with those pre-selected dates, or do we need to like adjust any dates because of shows, events, vacations? Sometimes we have like an anniversary show, we got to like shift that because we want to have just too much promo happening on one thing. So we'll just lock in a date, and then once we have all of that information, I kind of handle all of that back end stuff. So we use LabelWorks currently for our publishing. So we will get the artwork, we'll get the agreements that has people's names and things like that, and I will upload the release information, the dates that's going to be released. I'll upload the artwork, I'll upload the music, and at the same time, it's not required, but I do draft like the concept of like the blurb or what we're going to promote or the description of the track. It doesn't necessarily always get pushed to all of our channels, but I create it then and there and keep it saved in our LabelWorks like profile. That way, like at any point, if we need to duplicate anything, we have that saved description. We don't have to remake it or chase down the Instagram post that's like buried in our post, right? So kind of use it as like a saving library. And once everything is good and it's all spot checked, and made sure there's no spelling errors and things like that, we push the release out and try to give yourself, a few weeks, if possible, just to get everything settled in. We try to have a 4-week baseline before release. We don't try to upload 2 weeks, it's a little too soon for us. So we try to have at least a month out before we release. So if I'm planning on releasing 11/1, I should be ready and have it submitted by 10/1. So we should have that 4 to 5 week lead time just for our own cushion. And then, as we get towards that date of release, we will get prompted with some of our pre-save links, Spotify, Beatport, things like that. And then depending on our bandwidth, we'll start creating those materials for release. Hopefully, perfect world, we want to do a pre-release stuff, but currently we've been a little stacked up with all of our events, so we'll be kind of promoting a little bit more on the nose. And then once it's out, it's out everywhere on all channels. So it's a pretty easy process, but we do have a system of, collecting all of our items, uploading it, and then submitting it all, and then promoting it and releasing it on the day of. So simple process, but
How long, what would you say so like for someone checking this out, and I'll definitely be having this conversation and using this, this episode as some backup to help people understand the indie label process like this. Best case scenario, what would you say is, time from agreeing to sign or signing something to actually it making its way to, release to the world, commercially released? What's your best case scenario, you think? And then what's a reasonable, duration that an artist should maybe be okay with?
yeah, we're trying to get better at having things more stacked up in the pipeline. And when we were really good about this year, I said at a maximum, I'd say we had like a, 4 or 5 month leeway time where we had a song we knew we wanted to sign. We had a couple releases out, like, hey, we're gonna release this in like 4 or 5 months. And so we had a kind of that similar leeway. More recently, it's been a little closer, maybe a couple of months for some of our releases. So we're really small and we have availability, and we've all agreed that if a super hot song comes and we want to squeeze it in between releases and there's time, like, we'll just squeeze it in. So we don't have any like hard rules, so we are fluid. But I would say like a couple of months, like on something at our scale, is pretty average. But some of the more commercial labels that I've been talking to, might even say we're booked almost all of next year already. So if you're going to release, it's going to be like almost a year. So I have heard stuff like that as well. But for us, we're probably within the 6 month mark. You'll have your song released probably with us. So
Yeah, no, cool. I mean,
pretty
that's
quick.
that's well, I mean, you're right. It's not overly complicated, but at the same time, um, as we've discussed a little, some of the software tools you have to manage that whole pipeline maybe aren't as a little bit of. I like to call it high friction. That's how I like to describe like high
That's
friction,
great. Yeah, high
you know,
friction.
for processes that I'm involved in or workflows. Right,
Yeah, just messy. Yeah,
my workflow is high friction, bro. I got to spend the week like trying to
like
get
that.
that down to medium friction, right? Because
Yeah,
for me, anytime I'm ever frustrated, it's almost always like just step back and think like, I'm frustrated because something's taking me a lot of time and it's taking away from something else that I normally want to do,
yeah.
whatever that may be, walking the dogs, family, whatever. So yeah, anyway, high friction, low friction. But one thing I wanted to, you hit a couple really important points. I just want to recap real quick that I think I know a lot of people. I've seen discussions about them or been involved in them, and one of those is it's 100% normal for once a label likes your music and is going to put it out. It's 100% normal for them to want a pre-master that they can master themselves. What's not normal is for the label to ask you to pay $300 for them to do that. And I see that question asked a lot, like if that's normal. And to me, that's not normal. If the label wants me to pay, X amount to have it mastered, then I feel like they should be open to me at least providing a master and then they can have the choice from there. If they don't like the master I provide, especially if I've got previous releases which are commercially acceptable, then if they want to master it, it's no problem. Here's your pre-master, but I'm not paying for the master to be done. That kind of thing. And it shouldn't be recoupables or stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of a point circling around the drain that I see discussed a lot. Excuse
I
me.
used to.
Yep.
If someone, like I signed some music early ago, and he didn't ask me to pay for it, but he just said send me the master, and like I'll push it on the label. So like there was no like requirement, and like
Yeah.
I felt okay with that. But I have seen like give me money to master your song. Like that doesn't feel right. Like I'm not giving you my art and money like that. I'll master at that point, because I don't know who you're. So I don't know. It feels weird
Yeah.
at that point. You should just master it then. If you want to be picky about who you're choosing to master, then you should pay to master it. Then it's your label. So
That makes total sense. We're in alignment on that one. And then the
yeah,
other that you mentioned was, and I asked about, was really just the cycle time. I think I've heard all kinds of crazy things. Like, yes, there's always things that can happen and special deals and all sorts of stuff. But generally speaking, with an indie label, a small group, especially a regional local group that's doing a release a month, something like that. Maybe they're compilations. Maybe anywhere from 3 to 10 songs could be whatever. But I think if you can get with somebody who's got a 3 to 5 month to public release timeline and has a plan and a they can describe to you like you just did, I think that's super important, and I think it's totally reasonable. I think if um, one reason in making this point is that I will hear people get mad almost sometimes at like XYZ big label, let's call them the global labels. Maybe they're independent, not like Sony, BMG, that kind of thing, but let's just say like the big electronic dance music labels. Um, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we're booked for the whole next year and going into 2026 or something. And people get mad about that. And I just think like, look, that doesn't mean they're a bad label or whatever. They've probably got, if you put yourself in their shoes, I mean, they've probably got pipeline coming in that's totally overwhelming from track stack, from label radar, from every direction. They're not making $1 billion. They're making money, but they've got to be careful and run a business and be profitable. And so like, look, just I think if you have something that's a deal and you're not willing to wait, or you'd really like to get it out, to get your sound out, keep your flow going as an artist, I think if something is not within, say 2 to 4 months to make it.
yeah. I would say that just keep that in mind, dude. Like, some of the people that I know that sign on bigger labels too, like the bigger they are, the bigger the weight. The line's big to get into the hot places, right? Everything is like that, and if a big label wants to sign your music later, like take that as a compliment, dude. Like that's awesome. Like that's a win. But if you really need it, because there's needs, we have needs as artists and whatever, and maybe it needs to be out sooner, right? And that's okay. And maybe you should do personal release. Maybe you should find an indie label, but like, will you have that same return? Like, I don't know. Will it hurt your relationship if you don't sign that label? Like think of things that could build. Like you could not sign it now, but now you have a relationship with them for a whole year, and you could be sending them stuff, right? So like,
That's right.
think of the value beyond like the song coming out, because that's not it. It's like it's going back to what we said before about the relationships and like the community, because like you don't just want to be another guy. They're like, oh yeah, we'll throw him in there. You want to be another guy, yeah, let's put him in there, and then like you're on the radar for the next one, the next year, and the next one, and then like build that. Don't what I mean? So it just depends how you look at it, So
Yeah, I mean, if they're a label you like, I assume in the first place, since you've scraped to get their attention, and those are some great points you just made about reasons to maybe wait that long and then work on other stuff, right? They're not. I would think it's very rare for a label these days to have any kind of exclusivity over someone releasing on others, while things are cooking on their side.
waiting that long, like I mean, probably rare, right?
Yeah, and that's their flow. That's their flow, respected and whatnot. And like you said, it actually reminded me, like I did a lot of stuff on label Radar. I'll probably back off of it at the end of this year. I just committed to like a year to really like try it and just give it a really good experience to see what I thought about it. There's been some pros and cons, but one of the pros, as you have mentioned, is not having something signed as much as a few labels that I've really looked up to for a while. Like I actually now have personal email addresses from people because they were interested in something. They wanted maybe a revision. Maybe I didn't get it right. Just couldn't arrive at what was their sound. But in that, I wasn't like working through label radar, right? At that point, we were outside. I'm talking to an A&R or an assistant. Doesn't matter. First line of defense at a big, and it's all good. Like it was no sweat for me, and now I know those people. Had a Zoom call with one, and it's cool. It's no big deal, and I know I can find them. Maybe they move on to another label. You just never know, right? And that's how things happen over time, right? So yeah, really good point there. I know we're gonna wrap in like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but if it's cool, let's hit. We had a point we were gonna a little bit about just breaking into the scene. I think that kind of segues off of you've got you've found your break with your label, mid-size, whatever. You got it signed, it's coming out, that, and then let's say it's your first. So from there, kind of breaking onto the scene, what's your perspective with how to think about that as an artist or label breaking onto the scene and making a mark? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's just like you got to cut through the noise a little bit, and you got to be around. Like, how can you be a famous DJ if you're not around? Like nobody, you're not even like supporting the scene, right? Like you got to be kind of in it, right? You can't be like you can be a bedroom person, but like you also like can't just be a bed. If you're a bedroom person, you still got to be online in your scene. So like just get involved, right? Like whatever it is, like groups, that you create a little kick and bass group, like Discord chats, going to shows, like learning and going to people on Patreon and like learning from people and building connections that way. Like, I mean, like get involved and that's how you get yourself out there and make a mark, because like no one's gonna care if you're not putting anything out anyways. But like if you're just another song, like that's not enough anymore, right? And you don't have to be this TikTok star comedic thing where you're doing all these crazy videos. Like you could, and it's fun to do content like that, but like you don't have to do that either. Like my angle and how I've gone out was like I'm a social person. I just went to stuff. That's how I got into where I'm at now. Like I literally I didn't get booked at S Union. Huh? What was that?
Yeah, that's how we met, was just at
Yeah,
parties. I mean,
we were just out, right? You go out, you meet people, you say what's up, you bump into people, you spill a drink or whatever, and or you're vibing to the same song, and you're just like, "What up, dude?" And like for me, I kept going to shows, and then Tyler, after a while, was like, "Who are you? You're always in the shows." Man, I'm Cameron, and like I'm a DJ, and like that's how they like knew about me. And then like one day they booked me, and then they booked me again, and then I was on their team, and like now I'm running stuff with them and do all these other crazy things. So it's like it all started just because like I love drum and bass, and like the love of like what I was in fruit of these things. I wasn't going in like I'm gonna be this like indie label guy with doing these shows. Like that wasn't ever like part of the plan, but like it came from like the heart, and it came from like wanting to be in the community somehow. So like just get involved and like bring your art to the table. Like I held that back previously, and more recent that I'm like putting it out there, I'm realizing how much more received that it is. So just put it out there, be involved, and you'll just see what happens, dude. And just be consistent about it. You can't just do it once. Got to do it a couple times, and just see what happens.
yeah, it's those are great points. I mean, it's kind of like even just using the term breaking into the scene is a little bit strange, right? Because you're really not like, it's not like you just pop one day, right?
You're
Like
right. You're
like
right. You're just like I'm around, unless you got
I mean
money,
that
and
that
pay
does,
for ads. But
that does happen, and people do, pop from a regional level maybe to a national level, a national to an international. These things do happen, but typically it's for me anyway, it's always much slower to me than to anybody else, right? Like to your point about when y'all tried the art project and the branding, and you'd talk for hours and hours, and it was all funny and made sense and whatever. And then you stood back and were like, whoa, that's complicated, dude. It's almost like the reverse when people talk about something breaking or popping. It's like that, like you're seeing you're maybe coming into touch with this person the first time, and you don't know maybe that much about them, maybe a little from Instagram or socials, but look, none of us are studying other people's socials. We see it, we funny, go on, we're happy for our friends, whatever. And yeah, and in doing that, um, it's you're very familiar with all of it, right? You've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. That journey, right? So like, unless you went from, and I think the roundabout point I was getting to is, I think through releasing music is probably pretty well agreed that that's the one way that something pops. But for me, that's not really breaking into the scene. What you described is more breaking into the scene, right? You love it, you're there, you organically kind of meet people, and a lot of those people, you vibe with some, you don't vibe with others, fine, go the direction with the flow. And over time, you'll find that those people get involved in various things, whatever, and become, that's kind of your music family, if you want to call it that. That's your music base, right? That's what that becomes. and
Mhm.
and you don't even realize it's happening. It just happens because you're there, like you said, right?
Yeah,
So
yep. Simply put, too, like you want your fans to be like people you like and you love, and that your friends, right? So like it's really hard to make fans of people you don't know, right? But like if you're friends
ah,
with somebody and you have music, like you're gonna have like that support, right? And like that's a magnet, right? You want that magnetism. It's really hard to just be like screaming out the street, like listen to my music. Like it's just lost. It's get lost, right? And you're gonna catch some, right? But like nurturing at least a community, and that baseline, and just being present, like you're saying. So yeah.
yeah. What do you did mention, and we'll use this as the last point on this topic. What you mentioned, maybe someone isn't in an area where they have a lot of opportunities, even like you described, to connect. We're very lucky in San Diego. um, it's an amazing community for many many reasons, and music is one of them, especially electronic dance music of a lot of kinds, and variations and levels of clubs and all that, right? So we've got that, and you and I know that, and we're part of that. What about someone who's not in that situation? Like, can they still?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you called it bedroom something or other, but like a little bit
Yeah,
on that.
it is harder to be just in the bedroom, but I mean, it's totally possible, right? And I'll give you a good example, and this kind of goes as far as like me trying to release my own music. So I had a single that I really liked, and like I didn't want to shop it. I was like really proud of it. I was like, I'm gonna release this as like I've had singles before, but it was like my single, like my Fight Back single, and like everybody was like, this is the coolest thing you've ever made. So like I was super stoked on it, and so I used this SoundCloud exchange website where you get credits, and it basically like starts sharing the music, and people get credits by sharing your music. So we all earn by promoting other people's stuff, and people leave comments. And so any label that commented on my stuff, I went back on them and said, hey, thanks for like liking my music. That's thank you. That's all I said. And this one label had made really cool neuro music, so I actually went down on their or on their SoundCloud, and I just listened to them, Genome Records, and they were like really cool. So I messaged them back. I'm like, "Yo, your music's like really cool," and so we just started chatting. And he's like, "Yo, dude, like send me some music." So we started chatting, and he's like, "Yo, like the music's cool, but like not quite what I want to release, but like that's just like stay in touch." And like now we just like talk all the time. He has a bunch of US artists that he wants to send to me that I might try to get booked at random shows for. Like we're just building a connection beyond the music. And like again, I just put myself out there. I just like said thank you. Hello. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to do much. People think you have to have this like crazy personality, and like half the time, dude, if especially like if you're meeting another person that's also a bedroom person, like technically we're all alone at that point. Like be that person
Yeah.
that's like, yo, we're right here together. What up, dude? Like make it not feel alone, and make
Yeah.
it feel like you're right there. Like we have these barriers, but like you can make it not be a barrier online if
Yeah.
you just interact. So
And it's a good point about you don't have to be this or that. Like I think sometimes people see like maybe like a Fisher, let's say, and then they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to jump around or this or that. Like, let's just say he does those things, whatever. He's definitely got an extrovert personality, all that, and people feel maybe like they can't break through or get anywhere in a community because they're not that. And I think it's funny because my take on that is like it a lot of those people, the Aokis, the David Guettas, the Fisher, whatever, like that's probably how they really are. Like Fisher, a good example because I actually knew him of him through surfing because that's a passion.
okay.
He used to be in the pro surf tour and the CS and all that stuff. And dude, he was just like that before. You can go find videos of him when he used to do this. That's how this whole follow the fish TV thing is like his handle on socials and stuff because like he's been doing this like I don't know how long, but it's a while, man. And I found out later I didn't know, but then I found out like basically when he was on tour, he used to cruise around with like his mates and they would DJ wherever they would do the surf tour events. And I think that's where like the group Cut Snake he was part of came out of and stuff. So it's like, like I think it makes a lot of sense to step back a second. If you don't feel like if you're in a community and working on being part of it, and you just don't feel like you vibe with anything, then maybe move on, find a community that vibes with you. But there's really I hate it because whether it's purely digital or in person, you're going to run into the same kind of things, right? There's going to be people that are funny online or sarcastic and commenting and stuff. Like if you go over to the Burning Man group, it's all sarcasm and all craziness, kind of hard edge Cowboys kind of feel to it. Maybe that's I'm one that's a little different, but very good point. And I think you can do it either way. But if something's not your flavor, don't. There's no need to hate it. Just like back off and be like, oh, okay, like look, that's how these people are. They're just having a good time, and that's not for me. I'm going to go over here, and
Yeah.
and find a different lane, find a different groove. There's a lot of people
There's
making music.
plenty to go around. Don't force it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
much better to find your own swim lanes, as I like to put. Um,
Yeah.
we'll get to a close with what's gonna the UVB stuff, but
Yeah,
kind of
definitely.
what are you thinking next, through the next year, let's say, as an artist?
Yeah, so just personally, I'm moving to Chicago, so that's gonna be just a crazy endeavor, and I really hope to rekindle some of my house love there, since kind of birth of house in a sense. So
Yeah.
really excited about that, and the inspiration I'm going to get is going to be just outstanding. So I'm really excited about that. I am self-releasing a song in October that I've been holding on to, kind of like a pseudo jump up roller crunchy drum and bass song called Whirlpool. I made everything, got it mastered by Lines and Mastering. I made the artwork. It was one of the songs that fell out with that label I was expressing before, but now I'm actually kind of happy that I'm pushing it out because I got to full control over it. And I like the song a lot, and it's cool, it's different, and so releasing some stuff like that. I have a few other songs that are almost done, and one really cool liquid song that's a high energy. I actually do want to shop this one to see if anybody wants to buy it, but I'll be very happy to self-release it. I have another remix from Taji D that I'm working on called No Fame. And dude, I thought Same Old Joe was sick, and it's like better than that one. It's like the songs that I work with him, just they're so like, the ideas just come out. So I'm loving that. So got that working on. Yeah, apparently, but the lyrics in this song say I want all the money, but not the fame. And like, that's how it is right now. I want, like, I don't want to be famous. I just want to crush, put it out, have a good time. So that's a couple of things happening in the future. By Bass Records. So we just released the Same Old Joe trilogy in November, right before Thanksgiving. I forget the date, 18th or 23rd. We're going to be releasing a song with Ben Soundscape and a couple vocalists. And I forget the name of that song. We just got the masters the other day. I'm about to work on all that stuff, get the artwork kind of prepare. So new tune coming out, and then hopefully we'll have another release coming out next year. But what we have been doing too is we've been spotlighting our artists in the second floor. So every now and then we'll have like UBB artists DJ the second floor of our show. So we've been doing more 2 stories that spin now. We'll have the first floor be our host, and then we'll collab with people in the front. So sometimes we'll have our artists. So if you do sign with us, another opportunity is that you might get to play some of your music at our shows too. So those are some things in the future working out.
Yeah, we'll have to get together again and talk sometime about the whole event and event production and all that jazz. This was awesome. I know we wanted to talk about labels. I see so much talk about it, particularly through the producer communities I'm in, and I'm stoked for it. Thanks for spending the time, dude.
Yeah, man.
The last closeout thing is, where can people find you, and where can they find United by Bass?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to probably have most of my music will be on SoundCloud, YouTube, but BurnCam is my handle for everything. If you just type in BURNCAM, I own the handles for like everything, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Like, I got that locked in way long time ago. So follow me, BurnCam, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud. Those are all great. United by Bass Recordings, same thing. We're posting a lot on SoundCloud these days. We are on Instagram. We are on Spotify. We're on all the big channels. If you want to support us, please buy our music from Beatport. You could follow us on our Facebook, United by Bass Recordings. So any of those are great. We post all of our music on all of our channels. Any support would be awesome. So thank you.
If somebody wants to send music in for consideration with United by Bass, what's the deals there?
Yeah, so feel free to just directly message us on SoundCloud. Just send us a "What's up" message. I will be on that. Me and Tyler share the responsibilities of SoundCloud.
Cool.
Honestly, you can DM us on any channel, to be honest. But we also do have a submission portal on unitedbybass.com. There's like a little link, so that'll send us an email. But honestly, we're casual and small, where if you just reach out, dude, I'll listen to your music and let you know. So
sick, dude, sick. All right, man, we're gonna wrap it. I'll see you when hopefully we can get together when I'm rolling through to the I'll mention my gig in San Francisco for the Space Cowboys, November 1st, Friday, November 1st, for the Cowboys and Aliens party at Great Northern. That's what's up. And Cam, when I'm rolling through for that, let's get together, buddy. All right.
Yeah, let's go taco. Let's do it. All right, Wes. Appreciate you, my man. Have a good night. All right.
Later, dude.
All right, that was fun. Let's do it again sometime. That was great.
See you, buddy.
See you, bud.